Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
In 3, 2, 1.
Yo! Welcome to the Bub and Bob Show, where we have rare conversations with compelling Christians. At least that's the aim. I am Bub Coons. Over there, protected from COVID-19, behind the hermetically sealed glass, is Bob Matosian.
It's good to be me today.
It is. It's been
behind the glass.
It's been kind of an interesting 3 weeks. It's March 31st, right?
Yes.
Tuesday, March 31st.
Yes.
And we don't usually tell everybody when we're shooting.
No.
But the last few we have, because we're in a very strange time in the world with being, quarantined and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
From the coronavirus. But God is on the throne, still doing amazing things. And
Yes, there's no doubt that life is forever changed, though.
I know,
This is definitely a stake in the ground or a turning point where things are different. And I think they always will be different from this point on.
Well, I think, and it's a good kind of wake up call, right? We're not in a twinkle of an eye, the world can change.
Yeah.
And which is interesting because we're about to introduce somebody that's been through it. A couple of weeks ago, we had Ed Nilsson on the show who had lost a child, and his words were, "To God be the glory." And then we had Mike Fabarez on talk about the COVID-19 from a biblical perspective, and then right out of the blue we had this amazing guest that we're going to talk about. But I don't want to give it away yet. Here's what I want to do. I want you to imagine everything is going great in your life, and you go on vacation, and everything is normal, and then this happens.
We knew there was something desperately wrong.
Our faith has never been really tested by fire, and this was tested by fire.
Within a very short period of time, her life was in jeopardy.
And was our faith going to be strong enough? I turned 60 on July 5th. We were up at our cabin in Northern California, family cabin.
On that evening of her birthday, she was having pain in her lower back, and then it had moved to her front right side. This doesn't look too good. This could be a number of things. So I rushed her to the emergency room.
Come to find out, I had a kidney stone. They said, here's some medication, go home, pass the stone.
As the next day progressed, she started showing signs that there was something that wasn't right. As we rushed her back to the hospital, quickly they admitted us, because we had been there just 30 hours before, and took her blood pressure, and her blood pressure was so dangerously low that we were whisked off immediately into an emergency room.
I had never had a kidney stone, so I didn't really know what to expect. Bottom line is, it blocked my kidneys, so toxicity was going up back into my kidney, and I got sepsis. So within 24 to 30 hours, I was being rushed back into emergency, and that's all I remember.
So imagine going back to the hospital thinking, well, she's fine, she probably needs a different medication or this or that, and all of a sudden you walk in, and within seconds, he's saying, this is life-threatening. Stunned by that. I literally had to walk out of the room for 30 seconds. The power of prayer would be the only thing that was going to save her life.
Most people don't survive this. They put me on 5 pressors just to keep my 5 major organs running.
So I started calling key people, called all of our family, called friends, called other people from the church, and asked them to fervently pray, knowing that the only way there was going to be a change in outcome would be God.
They did a lot of work. Doctors were surrounding me, I guess, just trying to keep me alive. I didn't remember anything for 2 weeks. So Mike was my rock, and our daughter and son-in-law, they went through the whole thing with us.
And then Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, she became more ill, more difficult.
The doctors had done everything, liver doctors, kidney doctors, heart monitors. I mean, they could not get even a pulse on me.
At this point, they're saying she's going to go ahead and die at any moment. Can't find a blood pressure. So it was at that time that I got everybody together, her whole family that was there.
Our family basically took over the family care room.
And I said, look, here's the deal. We've been praying our hearts out for 3 days. It'll only be the hand of God that could heal her. We've been praying. God knows our prayer. God's no less God if she dies or if he heals her. Follow me into the ICU room. And everybody followed me in. And we went in there and we sang hymns and we talked about Vicki and we had a chance for an hour to pray and do all these different things.
And Mike kicked all the doctors and nurses out, just said, okay, it's family time now. And everyone was saying their goodbyes. But what I heard in my heart, in my soul, was singing. And I could hear them surrounding my bed. And then God took over.
Hours pass. Every hour, I'm up, I'm there. It's now 4 in the morning, and the nurse says her blood pressure mysteriously has come up to 120/60. It's completely normal. I look back, she all of a sudden has a blood pressure. It was at that point I realized when the doctor said no, God said yes. Firsthand, I saw the power of prayer. I saw the power of the fellowship of believers. I knew there was no way this was happening without God. No way. She's working different things with her.
When I did regain consciousness, I couldn't speak. I still had tubing and all the monitors and everything.
Because some of the medications they give are called pressors. They're designed to increase your blood pressure so you can live, but it takes all the blood away from the extremities, your hands and feet.
I did look down at my hands, and they were totally black.
I heard from the vascular surgeon about 3 weeks in, her hands and feet aren't going to make it. She had no blood to her hands and feet. They're dead. We're going to have to amputate them. I mean, my heart and soul just dropped when I heard that.
In my heart, I just knew that my miracle was going to be that I'm alive today. And my ministry is that I don't have hands and I don't have feet. But He will be my hands and feet.
Other side. Push. Both ways. Let's do some of your arm stuff too.
That's true.
There you go. Okay.
September 1st was the day that I had my hands and feet removed. It was grueling for the first couple weeks after surgery. My goal was to get out of that hospital as soon as I could, be home with my family, and I said, Lord, give me the strength every day to get up and do this because I don't want to do it. It's hard work. I was the sickest that they've ever seen that was able to walk out.
You know, when you have severe septic shock, most doctors will say this is about a year process to get back, to the new normal even. I'm not talking about just walking and everything, but just biologically, medically. There's a lot your body has gone through when all your major organs are shut down and all these things happen.
Luke's ready.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Physically, I'm really at a loss right now. I taught second grade. I've taught for over 20 years. In fact, I was Teacher of the Year for my school last year. I took piano lessons for 10 years. Without fingers and hands, I'm not going to be able to play the piano. Every trial has been counting on people helping me right now. My family has, at this point in time, has to feed me. My husband has taken off work to caregive for me. And so, that's commitment. That's commitment in marriage. That's commitment in family.
A lot of things in our lives have prepared us for this day and moment. And as I look back, I see those now as God reveals more and more of those to me. We've grown in our marriage incredibly because we're unified and we're doing this together. It's the power of God that's done that. It allows me to have the peace that passes all understanding. It gives me the ability to go forward in the midst of what people would say, how do you do that?
Every step of the way has been a trial, but God has met us every step of the way.
God answered our prayer, she's alive, but they continue to be trials day in and day out. God has strengthened us as the trials have continued. God has strengthened us as they intensified. And this foxhole that you're put in, it tests your faith. It doesn't test your faith once or twice or 3 times or 4 times. My faith has been tested continuously. And the only thing I can say is it's strengthened as I've gone along.
People would say to Mike, can we share your story? And he'd go, absolutely. Just make sure that the word of God goes out with it. Get my story out. I don't want this to be in vain. I want people to hear it. I want the world to hear it. That's the whole purpose, is to just glorify Christ. I can't imagine going through this without Christ. I know he's prepared us, and I know he's prepared me. I just have to hang on to that and know that this is not the end of the story.
This is Vicki Zoradi. Welcome to the Bub and Bob Show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Wow. I mean, when you see that, Bob and I had seen it before, and then when you watch it again, it is before we go to the day-to-day struggle that must have been, this was a year and a half ago when this kind of happened. Before we go there, where in the world did you get your faith?
Well, I had such a blessed life. I came from a Christian home. I remember my mom sitting down reading Bible stories to me. Back then, 50 some years ago, they always said, ask Jesus into your heart. But it wasn't until I was wrestling with God when I was about 5th grade, 11 years old.
Okay.
And we had a speaker. My parents had founded an evangelical free church.
Okay.
But at that time, this particular Sunday was a missionary from Africa. And I was in the 3rd row, really intrigued by her because she was 28 years old. And here I was 11. And I remember God impressioning on my heart, you're going to be like her. You are going to be a missionary for me. And I thought, what? I was blown away.
Right.
And I remember saying to God in my heart, no, God, no, don't send me. Don't send me. Please, God. I was begging him not to send me. And I started thinking, this whole time that she was speaking up there, I was wrestling with God.
Wow.
And in my heart, I remember distinctly rebelling from God. Saying no,
That it's
I'm not going to do it.
You had other plans with your life?
I have other plans for my life. And
At
it
11.
took the whole, at 11.
At 11.
And I took the whole service of wrestling with God, basically like Jacob did, wrestling for that blessing. I was wrestling for God to change his mind.
Yeah.
Little did I know 50 years later that this would happen to me. And I would be on a different mission field.
Right.
I wasn't going to be a nurse. I was going to be an ambassador for him. But at that end of that service, I remember just saying to God, okay, I surrender. Wow. And it wasn't until I surrendered that I really believed that, yes, I confessed my sin. I was being rebellious up until then, not really realizing it. But when God asks you to do something, you can either say yes or no. Yeah. And at that point in time, I was saying no. But by the end of the service, I was exhausted. Yeah. And I finally said, okay, God.
I heard somebody say that it's one thing to surrender a few things to God, but when you surrender your dreams to him, you finally submitted. Yeah. Right. And so when you have dreams of going off and go, no, I got to be an actor. I got to be this. And you finally go, no, whatever you want out of it. And then he switches it. Okay. So let's get into the nitty gritty here. Okay. Because this is, I couldn't even imagine what would happen.
It's a tailspin of a story for sure.
Yeah. What is was there a moment in there that whole time where you just I can't, God, where are you? What in the world is going on? Are you kidding me?
No, but God prepared us for this.
Okay.
Mike and I have been prepared for 40 years, not knowing that God was preparing us.
Like how? I mean,
I have some examples that are just crazy.
Okay.
But in God's timetable, it's not crazy.
Sure.
We have been married 40 years.
Okay.
So it reminds me of that Moses situation.
40 years in the desert with Mike. I'm sorry. It's not your fault.
No, it's awesome.
Mike is in here with me, just so you know.
He's
Mike
awesome.
is behind Bob there. Give it away. Yeah. 40 years. That's amazing in and of
40
itself.
years.
She's
And
saying
I-
nice things about you right now.
Yeah. Did he fall asleep?
And I prayed for that man at 16.
That's amazing.
And
Yeah.
didn't meet him until 17.
Yeah.
And when I met Mike, his mom had major migraine headaches.
Okay.
And so for her, she needed caregiving. And Mike was the baby of the family and was left at home to care for his mom with his dad. And that just launched him into what I would need. And he was prepared then.
Yep.
So God prepared Mike in that way. God also prepared us with memory verses and going door to door. We had no idea why at that point in time, other than just getting the gospel out to people. But when this actually happened, then, wow, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
It all
committing
comes
all
back.
that to memory is the very thing that you
And that's what
now
Mike
rely
really
on.
needed, because I was 2 weeks out. I was in a induced coma.
Yeah.
Then our daughter, Tiffany, was going in a nursing program. She came up to me one time and she says, Mom, I really don't think that I'm meant to go into a nursing program. And I said, really? Well, why? She says, well, I want to be able to be one-on-one with people, and I want to be able to share my faith and do the things that I think God's calling me to do. Well, this happened 4 years before this happened to me.
Wow.
Well, what did I need the most?
Yeah.
And you know when she graduated? She actually graduated this a year ago, January, and wasn't licensed with the state of California 2 months before I needed her.
That's providence, God's providence.
And then she
care.
couldn't get pregnant right away, and we couldn't figure out why she couldn't get pregnant. But she told me later, looking back, now I know I was there to take care of you and not a little baby.
Yeah.
Because Mike was working full time back then.
Did she have a baby now?
And now she has a baby.
That's fantastic.
So God's blessed
you got
them,
a
her and her husband
nice.
Mike, with
you got
a
a
baby.
grandchild. So if you're,
Yeah.
I mean, no one. It's hard for people to realize the level of pain this could be, right? Because you see that documentary, and I mean, it's heartbreaking, and and there's tragic feelings, but not because of what you guys ended up doing, because there's hope through the whole thing. But man, that is, you don't have your hands and feet anymore, which you had for such a long time.
Yeah.
It has to be hard. It has to be really, really hard and
Exactly.
painful. I mean,
Yeah. I had 60 years with my hands
Exactly.
and feet. So we were up in Northern California, as the video said, but, we're going through life just, were we blessed all the way through? Yes, we were blessed. God had blessed us. The only thing that was ever negative in our lives, we had a couple miscarriages, but both of us had never lost a job.
right.
Our kids were healthy. And so our anniversary for 39 years was in May. And so 6 weeks before, we had been at the cabin again.
Okay.
And it was interesting because I said to Mike, do you think our faith would be real? We're talking because it's our anniversary,
We
and
lived such a life of blessing. So
we
it's like,
did. And we both came to realize that, we've been in church now for many, many years, but it's all academic.
Right.
Until you go through it with your brain and you're actually going through a situation, then that's where if your faith is real.
It's really tested, isn't it?
It's tested by fire.
Yeah.
And it's fueled by that faith.
Yeah.
And so getting back to the pain question, I've had my hands and feet for years. I played the piano, I crocheted, I was a teacher, we had smart boards at school, computers.
Wow. All the things that you take for granted, you just don't even know. Yeah. Yeah.
But I want your listeners to really realize the difference between real pain versus phantom pain.
Yeah.
Because everyone asks me that.
Yeah.
I've heard about phantom pain. How is that so different? The pain started coming as I started working out with PT and Tiffany with OT. Being in bed so long, I couldn't even turn over.
Right.
And so someone had to turn me physically. They had to change me, I mean, everything.
Yep.
But when you're in the hospital, they have you medicated. When I got to Southern California, I got transferred to Kindred in Westminster.
Okay.
But then God orchestrated that as well, because at Kindred, I kept thinking, why am I only here for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
God had miraculously, in that 2-week period, set me up for all the surgeries
Amazing.
and the team that I would need for my amputations. And they told me that my amputations were scheduled for the long weekend of September 1st.
So you know it's coming. You know.
So, yeah. So my amputations were a year and a half ago. And it was the night before my surgery. And I said, God, please take this away. You could heal me in an instant.
Absolutely.
Like you did with the man with the withered hand. Yeah. And I love that one because that
course
was man with the withered hand.
Yeah, that's right.
And it wasn't until I prayed, God, I know you can do it. And he said no. And I started to sob. And I just said, okay, God, then I'm going to need your strength to get through this. I mean, this is tomorrow we're talking about. And mentally, he gave me an instant vision of this man at a wedding. He's all in this tuxedo, and he is leading his little daughter, all dressed up, bows in her hair. She's dancing on his feet. Yeah. And he's leading her around the dance floor. And I thought, that's it. And God said to me, in my heart, I will be your hands and feet.
Wow.
Just trust me. Trust me. I've led you around this dance floor for 60 years. But getting back to the pain. So I had my surgery September 1st.
Okay.
And it was painful. And people don't realize that, I have 8 severed bones from the surgery. I have ligaments that have been torn. I've got nerve endings that they're pushing back up into my arm before they seal up my wounds. And your wounds don't heal physically until 12 weeks.
Wow.
And your bones start calcifying on the end.
Right. But that pain ultimately kind of subsides. The phantom pain, explain that a little bit. I mean, because we hear about when soldiers lose their limbs and then they grab for it and it hurts, but it's not there.
No.
Because your mind is thinking it's still there because 60 years again with Ann. So, but there's a specific one that you and Mike were talking about that you started feeling in your hand.
So what I tell listeners all the time that don't know about phantom pain, the pain is in hands or my feet that I no longer have.
Yeah.
And that's where the pain is radiating because I think all those nerves are bundled up now inside my arm. So when my arm is severed and healed, I didn't really feel the phantom pain until months later when I got out of the wound care unit. But I tell people that the least amount of pain is feeling like I'm in cement. And then, or tingling, like they've been asleep. Like your foot, you've been sitting on your foot and it falls asleep.
Just feels weird for a little
while. And you
while,
take it out and you go, wow, wow, wow. This is different because this is like a shooting pain, like someone just shot your finger off or put a spike through your hand. And one day I said to myself, oh my goodness, I think this is just a fraction of what Christ did for me on the cross.
The feeling of that.
And where do I feel it? I feel it in my hands and I feel it in my feet. And God is so kind to let me feel that every once in a while. That sharp, sharp pain will come shooting back.
Yep.
And I'll say, well, thank you, Lord, for dying on the cross for my sins.
Yeah.
Because you took the penalty for me. This is nothing.
Yeah.
If you want me to go through this for you, I'll go through it.
That's going to throw some people off, right? They're going to throw up stuff like, oh, that's pie in the sky. You're just hoping that you're building this just to make yourself feel better. But this is a real faith that you've lived through. Your family's lived through. They prayed for you. You were basically dead.
Oh, I was.
There was in the hospital. The guy said no one this sick's ever left. And Mike went out and prayed, got a bunch of people to pray, came, kicked people out, sang songs to you, and then not suddenly, but you got better and you walked away. But people are going, come on, Vicki, I mean, you lost your hands and you're going to praise God that you can feel what Christ felt, and where does that come from? And there's a true change in your mind and your soul.
There is a change. And you don't know the change until you're in the foxhole.
Yeah.
But I'm here to praise God for his faithfulness in the good times and the bad times. I'm here to say God is your hands and feet. God will get you through whatever he wants you to get through. Because if he calls you for something, he's going to equip you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was not equipped for this.
In ways that you don't even know how he's going to equip you.
I had no idea. But yes, I was on death's door.
Yeah.
The doctors had basically walked out. Mike brought the family in because my family was in Sacramento.
Yeah.
So my son had flown down with his family from Portland. My brother came up from Fallbrook, California. My sister and brother-in-law were already in Sacramento with my dad. And so we had a whole family room full of Christians. But they filed into my room to say their goodbyes. I was out. I could not hear their words, but I could hear their singing.
Could you hear the melody singing or the actual the
I
lyrics
could
of the
hear
song?
them singing.
Okay.
And you don't know my family.
I don't.
They're all 4-part harmonies.
Oh, okay, they're good.
They're good.
Oh, I
They're
thought you were
good.
going to say they're bad.
Yeah, I
Terrible.
did too. It's
Oh
like
my
they're
gosh.
terrible singers.
No, the
so you're
whole
hearing
hospital,
this beautiful thing in your head.
And the whole hospital, like staff was like, what on earth is going on? And they were singing to me. And in my soul, I was just crying out like, God, I want to sing with them.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how sick I was. Isn't that odd?
Yeah.
I didn't know how sick I was, but I knew I couldn't talk. I knew my hands were getting black and blue. And Mike talking about prayer. The instant he found out that I was returned and I had, all these problems because I had almost every single one of my organs shutting down.
Yeah, one after the other.
And he immediately stepped out of the room. He told Tiffany, because they were up there with us, stepped out of the room and said, God, what do I do?
Yeah.
My bride, my wife, my love is dying.
Yeah.
And he instantly called the church, Compass Bible Church in Aliso Viejo. We are mentors in a Thrive group, which is for young marrieds. And the all-out prayer, call to prayer. We have our home fellowship group that are our age people. It's like a small Bible study. He instantly said, okay, this leader and this leader
Get everybody praying.
are best friends, and spread the word because this is only going to be on God.
Yep. He's the only one that can save
He's the
you now.
only
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
And that's what Mike put his trust in at that moment. He needed to be surrounded by the witnesses that were going to uphold him in prayer.
Yep.
And he knew that. He knew that only God, but God, right?
Yeah. Well, the importance
but God.
of a community of believers, prayer, singing, faithful, devout people coming and begging God, and
begging
God in His own counsel could have chosen not to, but He chooses to say, "No, rise, come out. It's time for you to live, and here we go."
And that's so true. They prayed, and Mike said to my whole family, and some of them didn't like this.
Sure.
You know what? God is no less God. If He saves her, or if He takes her home, she's ready to meet God, and so God might want to take her.
Yep.
And that's when they filed all in to say their goodbyes. And that same day, that night, we call it Miracle Tuesday, because they couldn't even find a blood pressure on me.
Right.
Vicki, did you know you were dying?
No.
You didn't?
No.
Wow.
But I've heard,
Right
and I've
from the-
seen all the prayer documentation that was going on between Mike and the leaders. And one of our dear friends, the O'Connors, she kept a binder of all the prayer requests.
That'd be amazing to see.
And they were my prayer warriors.
Yeah.
And it will be in my book, believe me.
Good.
But chapter 2 is all about the prayers. So Mike would come and the doctors would say to him, her liver is not going to make it. Mike goes, well, she can't live without a liver.
Yeah.
And the bilirubin counts at 28. What does it need to be down to? Well, at least
1.
20, but it'd be nice at 1. Yeah. So Mike would go to the prayer warriors and he'd punch in his...
Gotta go down, yeah.
And the prayer warriors would start praying and boom, boom, boom. It went from 28 to 24 to 20. Yeah. And they said, the nephrologist is the kidney doctor. She was foreign and she says, Vicki's kidneys are tricking me. And she's an atheist.
Yep.
And, and Mike goes, only by the grace of God.
Yeah.
Her numbers
absolutely.
getting better and better.
Yep.
I had 25 kidney stones in each kidney.
People can't even live with one. It's just the most painful thing in the world.
Yeah.
25.
So they're up in my kidneys and my doctor's taking care of them.
Well, that's incredible. Well, God, definitely had a message to send through you, through the power of prayer. He made it obvious that the medical community couldn't do it. Only that he could do it. But how long were you in the coma?
About 2 weeks.
Okay.
But it was amazing because my niece and my husband were sitting at my bedside late on Monday. And Michelle looks up and she says, Uncle Mike, I think there's a blood pressure. There's a reading.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden he goes, what? And he turns around and sure enough, right after all that singing, right after all that praying and saying goodbye, God goes, okay,
beep.
It's been 3 days.
Yep.
Now, they can't say it's anyone but me.
Yeah.
I say skip the book and go for the movie.
Yeah.
I'll go for that.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll happen. Did you, because we look back on something like that, and it's easy to just fast forward, like when we read scripture, but a year can go by.
Yeah.
24/7 you're sitting with this. What are you thinking when you're awake and cognizant? You can't talk, you're looking around, people are there, you can't really respond to them.
Right.
This went on for weeks.
Well, you have an advocate for the Father, and you have an advocate in your husband.
Yeah.
And so, God just directed things, put things in Mike's mind to do and to get ready. But I also want to talk about the peace of God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was about to say, were you scared? I'm sure there's some kind of fear, but like
the unknown.
The unknown, but it's like.
But as Corrie ten Boom said, don't be afraid of an unknown God with a known future. Mm-hmm. Because a known God, if you know God, don't be afraid of that unknown future.
You don't want the other way.
Sorry, I think
you want
don't be afraid of an unknown future with a known God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, Corrie ten Boom.
Yeah, it's okay. We got it right. We corrected it.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I felt. Like, okay, God, you're in control here. Yeah. I gave my life to you back when in 5th grade.
Yeah. It's yours to do what you want. But Mike, what about you? Were you freaking out? Were you scared? Or were you sad? Where was it?
You would think I would have been. Certainly, that peace that passes all understanding, I understood, I believed it academically, it's in the Bible, but it had never really been tested. And God did give me an incredible peace. And I think I was just surrounded by all these people praying for us. We had thousands of people praying, and I literally felt that peace. And it's unexplainable until you get there.
I've been there.
I really wasn't freaking out. This is the love of my life. I mean, this is an incredibly important person. We have an incredible marriage, and we not only did life together, we did ministry together, and I knew my life was drastically going to change if the outcome turned the wrong direction. But no, I had a lot of peace. It was amazing.
The peace of God that I got that night, coming from, going to have my arms and legs amputated the very next morning, I felt that God was in control.
Yeah.
And, okay, God, he told me he was going to be my hands and feet. And as I was wheeled in, a lot of church body was there with family as I was wheeled into surgery and into the pre-op. And my pre-op, I thought somebody had put a blanket. You know how in hospitals they put warm blankets on you? Yeah. And I looked down at my feet, and there was no one there. But I could feel this warm blanket.
Interesting.
Like God just tucking his daughter into bed. And I've got this covered. Don't worry. And the surgery only lasted 3 hours because I had both surgeons going at the same time. And even the peace later was just almost surreal.
Yeah.
But I don't want to give people false hope. There were times when I felt very, very vulnerable.
I can imagine.
After surgery, I could only move my head to do a call button because my arms wouldn't move. And so I would ring the nurse, and if they weren't coming in the middle of the night, you just
scary.
have to.
Yeah. Was there ever a time that you just went, Lord, take me? I know you may whatever your plan is, but Lord, I'd rather be with you right now.
Well, yeah, we didn't say why us.
Yeah.
Why God? That shaking their fist.
Interesting question to ask. I mean, but
we never.
But
said
here you are in a
why
situation.
Us.
Yeah.
I kind of think of it more like, why did God choose me and Mike to be his ambassadors? We're all called to be his ambassadors,
absolutely.
right?
Sure.
But why have this type of platform to go forward with his, his story, his gospel message? Why did he pick me?
Well, it's an amazing perspective, though. Why do you think you have that?
I know it's because of God, but I know it's because he created me that way.
Okay.
I have a very even temperament naturally my whole life. I mean, you have to be a teacher of second and first graders,
Absolutely.
right?
That's.
I mean, as people
God bless you for that alone. Yeah, it's like
as people are homeschooling their kids right now. You have to have that patience and you have to have that understanding.
Yeah.
So God hardwired me that way to begin with, and I believe that God made us from inception and brought us out of the womb.
Yeah.
So
Vicki, you're such a woman of faith that it's almost like you minimize the tragedy that you went through. You know what I mean? I'm curious when. After all these surgeries, and I know I've been medicated heavily before, and the months become a blur after a while.
Yeah.
But when you started to come back, and I know for myself, when I started to realize and look around at my family and how this has affected them, that's when it really sinks in. Because I mean, you get hurt and you're kind of wrapped up in your own thing and medicated. You start to come out of it and you look at your family and how it's affected them, and that must have been very difficult.
That was very difficult, but at the same time, I didn't want to put them through that, but they were so encouraging for me to say, God's called them. God's equipped them. Just like Moses with Aaron and
to go through
her.
this with you. Yeah.
To go, he needed those people.
What's the hardest thing that you have to deal with right now? Like stuff you're like, dang, man, I used to love to do that and I can't.
Well, I played the piano.
Right.
I can't play the piano anymore. My fingers just go, in unison.
Right.
I am writing, so I can put a stylus. Tiffany got
great.
me all putting a stylus in, and I sign papers and do stuff like that.
That's great.
When I'm writing my book, I speak type, so I just push a button and speak.
Technologically, we're
so I'm so
you're
thankful.
getting to do those things, but man, I would just because I'm always touching stuff, throwing stuff against the wall. Like, man, does it help you focus because it's gone now? Some of the stuff you just can't do anymore.
You just can't do.
Not yet. Yeah.
Vicki, you've talked about some things you can't do anymore. Is there something you can do that you couldn't used to do?
Yeah, watch this. Watch. You can't. No one can do this with their hand.
Okay,
I saw this earlier, and it kind of made me the.
Okay, did you hear the beep?
Yeah. Now watch. Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's
Whoa,
See,
crazy, huh?
I don't ever want anyone to go watch
I
The
can-
Exorcist, but I did when I was a kid, and that kind of scared me. So it's
I
like,
can eat.
yeah,
So,
which is amazing. The stuff.
so I can dab with my fork. I lock my fork in, and I just
And
go.
this is all just happening because your forearm and your hand,
Yeah.
you're normally saying the.
So I have
stuff.
muscle in my forearm,
Amazing.
and I'm reading my wrist that I no longer have,
Right.
which is crazy.
Yes.
It's like learning a video game.
Yeah, a whole new set of skills.
So I have to co-contract, which is, you hear the beep,
Yeah.
and then it goes back into
Yeah.
the hand. I have to signal this and this simultaneously to get it into the different mode. And then to move my hand, my wrist, I move a wrist I no longer have, but have it in my mind
Yep.
forward to close it
Right. And then back.
and
to
back to open it.
wow.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's things I can't, I shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah. Now you walked in here, like everybody else,
Yep.
into the studio. Do you use a chair, or is that part of your lifestyle, or?
Oh, I can. When I first got home, I could not get. I had no strength because you lose so much strength
Yeah.
every day you're in ICU.
Yeah.
And I was in for 36 days, and so I couldn't even sit up.
Yep.
I was just like this blob of Jello.
Yeah.
But then with PT and OT,
Right.
they know what you can do. They know how far to stretch you. And you do want to say, no, God, please take this
Right.
from me. I don't want to do this. I don't want to put my family through this. But when they come back and say, Mom, we're so glad
Yeah.
you see your grandsons
Yes.
now. Our son has a 2-year-old.
Amazing. Yeah.
2.5-year-old and one on the way, and then Tiffany and her husband have a baby boy.
Yeah. Amazing.
And
So the blessings still come. It's just
blessings
it's
are
just
still
different.
there.
I have questions. I have more questions.
Yep.
Okay.
for it.
Well, right now, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of people who don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. They don't know what's
Right.
going to happen next week. They don't know what's going to happen the week after. Now, the church has taken to the airwaves to speak to people and to do what we can to spread the word. And most can really say, fear not. It says it over and over in scriptures, and have faith and fear not and everything. You are somebody who has faced an unclear future, much like people are right now. So other than those kinds of things, how can you help people right now as they're looking into a future they don't understand, and fear starts getting a vote or a grip in their life and everything? And how do you as a person encourage them and point them toward the Creator?
Just read the Bible, read the scriptures, get really doused. This, especially during this time, you can read the scripture more than any other time. You're not working. Granted, your kids are home, but if they're working on their school things, just get into the Bible.
Now's the time to shift around and get some priorities straight for sure. And if you got lackadaisical in that, it's a good time to get back into the Word and get back to the core issues and the fundamental parts of Scripture. That's the only thing that can bring hope and bring life. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. We'll do like I never did that with that, so that's great.
Yeah,
don't grab my hand and do the twisting.
No,
thing.
I won't.
Yeah, okay, great.
There you go.
Really appreciate you being on here. Thanks
it's
so much.
my pleasure.
Thanks for watching, guys. God bless
Thanks,
you in
Bob.
this tough time. Go to the Word. Go to the Lord. See you, Bobby.
See ya.